what if you didn't have to choose work over your family, right? What if you created enough financial freedom or at least enough options or enough off ramps to choose that?
Yeah.
And when I finally chose that was, yeah, in 2022, when I now, because of that shift work that I was mentioning, I was having to miss I now had three boys and I was coaching them, and it was like some of the most fun memories I was making with them. But I was having to miss about half of them because during that shift, I was in the office, not able to go to their games, not able to coach them.
Financial independence,
freedom,
financial picture,
independent financially,
financial future,
financial freedom and wealth,
financial independence.
Get your fill, financial independence and long life. Hey, welcome to another episode of Get Your Fill, Financial Independence and Long Life, where we explore ways to achieve those two goals. Wicked awesome people come on to help us, and that's why I am very excited that Casey Gregersen is here with us today. He's the founder of Bighorn Capital, where they help professionals build long-term wealth through strategic real estate investments. I'm not going to talk about how he got started, all right? Casey, I'll let you talk about how you got started in oil and gas. And yeah, I want to stop it there, if that's okay, and let you talk about the rest of it.
Absolutely. I love it.
Cool.
That's a great way to do it. Well, first off, yeah, thank you so much, Christine, for having me on.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk and share. Yeah, I would say this. Maybe I was in a way born an entrepreneur, but I guess I didn't really realize I had it till later down the road. So I actually, to answer your question and start the story, I grew up in Wyoming, and I went to undergrad in Montana. I actually played college football up there for 5 years. And
Cool.
then I was lucky enough from there, I had a degree in math and chemistry, but then I got accepted. Well, backing up a little bit, with a degree in math and chemistry and a minor in physics, I had a bunch of paper, but wasn't sure what I was going to do with that.
No real job.
Exactly. You're right. So fortunately, I got accepted into the master's program at the University of Wyoming, which I always dreamed of going there. I always wanted to go to school there and be able to live in Laramie. And yeah, so I went there, got my master's in petroleum, and then that led me to getting a job with Shell as a drilling engineer in Houston, and that was back in 2012.
Cool.
So yeah, that was my W-2 gig I actually worked there for 12 years, just with one company. I went through all my training, worked in the field a lot. But as I was working there, that's when I started getting into the entrepreneurial stuff. And I had a really cool gig at Shell where I would go to the field for 2 weeks on a drilling rig or on a frac spread. And then I would have 2 weeks off. And during that 2 weeks off, like I always say, I didn't even have to pick up my work phone or even open my computer. Like I was completely off. And
Nice.
That's what allowed me to give me the time to start fixing and flipping houses, buying rental properties, and building my own business.
That's great, because that is kind of, even just being out in the field, right? That's what entrepreneurs, you're an entrepreneur because I think you're an entrepreneur because you want freedom. You want like different, interesting intellectual stimulation. You want to have a life of variety, and you had that already with your W-2. So you probably were always an entrepreneur.
Yes. Oh yeah. I for sure lean into it now, but it's like I never pictured it. Maybe it's just the way I was raised, right? My dad, he was an attorney. He worked, but he always played it safe, right? He worked for the city, and this is a story I tell all the time too. When they ended up having some leadership changes at the city and changed the mayor, and he no longer had his job, so he had to go out and have his own private practice. And I remember him just being scared to death because now he didn't have that predictable check, and he was and not that he wasn't capable, but he wasn't comfortable. And I'll never forget him coming home after a day where he was representing some clients, and he had a random client come up to him and say they needed help, and just how he felt relieved, but he was just so stressed. And like he didn't do that for very long. He immediately jumped onto another W-2 type attorney role and worked for an oil and gas company, and then he felt comfortable again. So I was kind of raised like that, so I never really thought about going out and doing my own. But now that as soon as I got a taste of it, right, when I was working my W-2, and then I had a taste of doing my own and seeing I no longer had a ceiling, like as hard as I worked, I could be rewarded for it, then I was forever ruined and forever ingrained as an entrepreneur.
That's it. I'm completely unemployable now. That's for sure. That's what happens. But that's the illusion, right? Your dad thought he had this security, and then, new mayor, sorry, see ya, right? It was always an illusion, but you just you don't have to face it, right? And the same thing with any job. People have this like, I'm doing my W-2 because it's, it's security, it's reliable. Yeah, it's reliable until your CEO changes or something else happens. So being an entrepreneur, you actually can be as employed as you want to be. You can be as busy. You can have as much money as you want to have if you just do it right. Do you feel like you just jumped right in with success right away, or were there some little quirky moments?
Oh yeah, plenty of those along the way. And fortunately, I kept my W-2 while I was learning those hard lessons. But back to your point, you were stating about learning it along the way and just it not having that security. You feel like, well, I just lived it working my W-2, where in oil and gas, it's a very volatile industry. This is another story I always share with people when I'm like explaining, like, because my purpose, my vision is to help 100 families achieve financial freedom. And where this comes from is I worked in an industry in oil and gas where we laid off, check this out, for every year for like 6 years, there was like 10% of us got laid off. Like we were always having reductions in staff. And every year we were going into our yearly meeting with our supervisors saying, hey, we were having our one-on-one meeting of like, hey, is this your time where you are getting let go? Like, and then one year we let off, it was during COVID when oil went negative. Our company Shell, like they had a huge restructure in our US group where they laid off 40% of our group, which was wild, right? So a lot of us were like, I was reapplying for my job at that time. And fortunately I was able to apply and get something else. But during those moments, that's when it just really clicked with me, because I'll never forget this conversation too. I was at one of my rental properties and I brought over he would have been my boss's boss, right? He was pretty high up and he dedicated so much to Shell, and a guy I really looked up to. And he came over and we were both going through that big layoff and having to apply for new jobs. And he's like, Casey, this is so cool what you've done. And he's like, I wish I would have done this. Like, I don't know if they call my number and there's not a bunch of other oil and gas companies hiring, like this is really scary for me now. And that's when I realized that I wanted to help more people like that, to where they could diversify and not maybe just have their money in the 401k and the stock market, actually take some steps to creating, like I called it was my off ramp, right? I was building my off ramp from oil and gas, knowing that I didn't want to do that forever, and knowing that when my number might get called, I had a good off ramp to shoot off on and keep the train going.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a great way to look at it, especially if it's more of a side hustle at the beginning, right? Because it's a learning curve. So you don't necessarily want to be learning and, potentially making mistakes when that's your only source of income.
Yes. Yeah. And to better answer your kind of initial question was I was learning it as we go, as you kind of mentioned it. But when I had those 2 weeks off, I could go find a house and I could fix it up. Right. And I went through tribulations of hiring the wrong contractors, right? Buying a rehab that went way over budget because we didn't know what was behind the walls, right? Buying real estate, buying deals where we thought it was a good deal and the market turned around on us, right? Like all those hard lessons. And I'm very thankful that I kept my W-2 longer, because I had a moment in like around 2017, 2018, right around 2018, where all of a sudden it was kind of like a snowball effect of a bunch of properties didn't sell. Now all of a sudden we had a lot of liabilities and properties we couldn't sell. And I'm thankful that I still had my W-2 at that time, because I was able to recover. I was able to pay back all my investors, right? Because we lost money on all these deals and we had to just restart. And I learned a lot of good lessons, but luckily I still had my W-2. And I actually, at the time, I was living in Dallas, Fort Worth. And what we did is I was able to, like, you know what? I got to press the reset button. I'm not giving up, but I got to reset. And I actually moved back to Houston, took an office job, but knowing that I was going to rebuild this and kind of give it a go another day, or at least live to fight another day. But
right.
I'm thankful I had the W-2, because if I had left sooner, then I'd have been like, oh, wow, these things all just went sideways. Now I got to figure it out and still try to provide for my family. So I was really thankful that I was able to learn some of those lessons while working my W-2 and have a much smoother off ramp when I left.
But that's the $1 million question. I think that's a question that a lot of people struggle with, is how do I know that I've created enough of an off ramp to where I'm not going to wish I had kept my job? So how do you help people understand that they've reached that point, or how can you get to that point and know that you're solid?
Yeah, Christine, that's such a good question. And I remember asking myself it when I was starting to feel like I had the off ramp. And I still answer that question to this day with many entrepreneurs. And I'm probably on the side of being a little bit more conservative. And I remember so many people in my sphere of influence that were conservatives. They're like, why would you leave that job? Like, and just to give you guys perspective, I was making about $200,000 a year in my job, and I was working for 21 days now in an office setting, but it was really cool. I would go in at 2 p.m. and I'd get off at 2 a.m. So I'd work a 12-hour shift. But instead of being in the field, like when I used to start, like driving out to West Texas or Gulf of Mexico on a platform or up to Alberta, Canada, those are all places I went.
Yeah.
Instead of traveling, I was driving 5 minutes from my house to the office and I was doing a similar role where I was watching wells like in the Gulf of Mexico. But anyway, I was doing all that, working half the year, mind you, right? So I'd work 12 hours, be home every night. And then after my 21 days was I'd have 21 days off. Right. So I had this amazing job. I'm like, I'm going to keep doing this as long as I can. And I had flexibility to where there was a lot of downtime on the shift that I was able to keep working on my real estate.
Yeah.
So it was an amazing gig. But what I found was it was really my priorities shifted, and it wasn't necessarily a number, right? Because I'm like, when are you going to find the number?
Yeah.
Because again, my situation was, if I could have kept doing that, I probably would have wrote it a little bit longer. But the crux I had was family, right? And that's another big thing. That's why I say I want to help 100. It's not 100 people. I want to help 100 families.
Yeah.
Because a question I asked many years ago when I was working out in the field, right out in West Texas, driving around in the fields and away from my family for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I was making good money. I was building my business, but I was away from my family and I was away from my kids. And I asked this question, and I still ask it to other people to this day. And it's, what if you didn't have to choose work over your family, right? What if you created enough financial freedom, or at least enough options or enough off ramps to choose that?
Yeah.
And when I finally chose that was, in 2022, when because of that shift work that I was mentioning, I was having to miss I now had 3 boys and I was coaching them, and it was like some of the most fun memories I was making with them. But I was having to miss about half of them because during that shift, I was in the office, not able to go to their games, not able to coach them. Right. And that's when I had the clarity. I'm like, I've now built an off ramp. I do feel safe. But at the end of the day, it was more of a calling of like, I know when I get to my deathbed, I had clarity thinking of, when I'm sitting there, am I going to be thankful or happy or satisfied in the decision I made to stay at that W-2 a couple more years to play it safe and miss all those young memories you don't ever get back? So I had that ultimate clarity, and that's when I made the decision, hey, I'm not going to miss those. And if I have to lose my job for it, then I'm good with it. And that's the decision I made. And that's how I knew, right? So everyone's different. It's like, you just gotta, to me, it's like, you either get to a number and you're very intentional, but sometimes you might get to the number and you're still in a really good spot, and you can do both, right? But then it becomes, I think, a family and ultimately your priorities.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. Because it's like the law of space or whatever. You expand to fill the available space. So if you're making more money, you're spending more money a lot of times. And you just like, that makes it a never ending cycle that, well, I just need to save a little more. I just need to make a little more. The cash flow has to just be there. You just have to put the line in the sand. Because I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, like this goal I want to be a millionaire. I want to have $1 million. $1 million is not really, it sure sounds like a great goal, but it isn't actually that much money, right? You can't never work again for the most part, depending on how old you are. You probably can't never work again if you have $1 million, unless you're whatever. But so then what does the goal become? You're going to save up $5 million? It's just ridiculous. So you have to get to a point where you've got some cash flow and you're living within that income to the point where you can allow things to expand and grow and whatever. But it's easy to pick a number, right?
Yes.
And then, like you say, you achieve that number and you say, gosh, this might not be enough. Maybe I'll work another couple of years.
You're right. Yeah, that's such a good point, because it's a moving target for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're on your deathbed saying, oh, I wish I would have had a little more money. No one says that.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So if you can, that's my thing. Look at it from that lens, and then I think that'll help give you the clarity you need.
Yeah, absolutely. So then now, what is your primary? So you were doing your own fix and flips and things like that, but you've evolved way beyond that now to where your fixing and flipping is not going to help 100 families to achieve financial independence. So what's happening now in your life?
Yes. So to fill in a little bit of the gaps to where I'm at now and how I got there from the first couple of fix and flip is, I really built out my operations and my team to where we'd be vertically integrated. So today I now have a full team that does direct to seller, and we find a lot of our deals. We also work with agents and other people who bring us deals. but I have like an acquisitions team is what I call them. And that's WYO houses. And we're focused in Wyoming, but we're also we've been branching outside of Wyoming into Montana and actually starting to do more stuff across the country now. So that's how we find the deals, right? And then the next piece I built, or the next kind of part of the process, I built this actually last, was the construction. Because in Wyoming, in some of our markets, it's so hard to find contractors, and it's hard anywhere, but it's really hard in our markets. So I was able to bring guys in-house. And actually last week, but speaking of that, I was at our base camp. Every year I have all my team up to Wyoming, and we get together, some kind of team building and planning and strategy. And it was really cool because I have 4 really core guys with me that are full-time doing our jobs. And it just helps. It gives me a lot more predictability when I'm fixing and flipping, or I'm buying a big multifamily value add, that I know I've got the guys that can do it, right? So then the third piece was property management. And I just inherently done that forever, right? When I bought my first rental property, I actually bought it 15 years ago in 2010 when I was going to the University of Wyoming. And I was managing it then, living in it, house hacking. And now today I'm still managing it myself. Well, not necessarily me. Now I have virtual assistants, and we own about 400 units that we own in my portfolio. And we do that. I do it all in-house. And it's one of my favorite things that we kept in-house, because now we have so much more control on that process. And when I go, for example, we just bought a 120 unit about a month ago, and I felt so much more confidence going into that deal, knowing that we had the management company in place that could go in and make this asset successful. So those were, to kind of answer your question, those are the companies I built out. But what I realized was, I love building it, but back to the point I made earlier, what I really loved was when I got to have a conversation or lunch or go present at a oil and gas conference or at a mastermind, or just to, like I said, have lunch with one of my neighbors, right? And talk to them and hear what they're going through, and being like, they want to get in real estate, right? They love a hard asset that they can touch. They love the security of it, but they didn't do everything I did. They didn't build up all these different companies. They don't even maybe know how to underwrite a deal. And maybe they just don't have time because they're doing so good in their W-2 job that they're like, that's their superpower, right? I'm like, I want to help those people and work with them to help give them a piece of what I've been able to build. And that's what's kind of led to me now. I have my own fund, Bighorn Capital Fund, as you mentioned earlier. That's how we work with accredited investors. And then I also have another cool offering we're doing right now where it's called Revive Fractional Club, where I can have people invest as low as $10,000. They can come be a partner with me on some of our fix and flips. And that's to me, it's one of the best ways that I can help. Let me just explain this, that if it's okay, when I have my fund, that's for accredited investors, and my minimum's 50,000. But there's so many of these families that are ready, that want to go on that journey, but they're not ready. They can't do 50,000 right away. Yeah. So this Revive Fractional Club is really cool because they can get started. They can start making a modest return, but ultimately like learn the process. And those are really the people that I feel like I can really impact in the 100 families. Like we've got 40 of them right now as part of that club. And they're a big start to our 100 families we're going to help.
Yeah. Well, you touched on it before, that is one of the challenges when you're just getting into trying to do your own flips and stuff like that. If you're not already in the trades and you're trying to find contractors and you're trying to find people who are reliable and who are going to take good care of you, not put you last on the list, right? They've got other priorities because there's people who they get more work from. So sorry, we can't be there today. And then that impacts the next 10 people who you had scheduled to do all the other stuff. And it's just really challenging. Whereas once you start to get some volume, you're the priority and you've got the best people working for you. And that is not easy.
No, it was a hard one to build too. There were times when I'm like, because now you got to manage payroll, you got to manage people. And I'm like, some of my other guys working, they were like, we just work with 1099, we just work with a GC. Yeah. And if that GC does the job, he gets paid. If he doesn't get paid. And it's that simple. So there's been times along the way, I'm like, oh, maybe I should have stuck there, but I'm glad I stuck it out. Cause just like you said, having control over that process and just predictability, right? Yeah. I'm telling you, like when I'm bringing a deal to my limited partners or my other investors, like I'm like, hey, we have much more predictability than anyone else because we have the guys in house and we can move. I have the ability to move them around.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. And that's always been one of the challenges. People worry about getting the money. I'm like, the money's easy. Getting the money's easy. getting the people, finding the good deals and then getting good people to work on those deals, that's always going to be more challenging unless, like you say, you've got the system, you've got the groove. So how does it work? Like, if imagine that I were a person who would someday like to do my own sort of fix and flip, but don't have the resources right now. I've come up with $10,000 and I give that to you. How how involved could I be in the process so that I could start to maybe evolve and understand some of what's required?
Yeah, that's why it's such a cool platform. And as I mentioned, it solved a big thing where I couldn't formally, I really didn't have a good way to work with an investor at 10,000 who was not accredited. But so now the way it works is they come in and they're actually a partner. They are actually literally on the operating agreement as a partner on the deal. And what we do in our Revive Club is they come in, we're actually doing a vote next week with all of our current investors or I should say partners, right? We all have a meeting. I present a deal that we're going to be fixing and flipping with my company and say, hey, do we want to, as a Revive Club LLC, do we want to JV on this together? And then they have to vote. I have to get a majority vote from all the different partners. So they get a green light every deal that we do. So let's say that they green light it. Then what I do is, well, first off, they got to see me do all my underwriting, provide all the documentation that I do for all my other deals. So that is a huge value for them. Because down the road, eventually, I think a lot of these people will want, and you said it too, Christine, like they're going to want to do a fix and flip themselves. So I want to show them how we put together the bank loan, right? Or if we took over, sometimes we'll take over a seller's loan sub too, if we're going to flip it really quick and all we do is fund the rehab.
Yeah.
Okay. And then all the other underwriting and all the other numbers and things that go into it, I want to share that with them. So basically, I share that on the front end with them and they can vote. And then after that, what we do is we just keep giving them updates. And this is probably my favorite part about it is I did this years ago when I first started raising money. And fortunately, I had a really good mentor that was like, if you want to raise money and do it professionally and do it at scale, you have no business doing it unless you do this one thing. And that was building out a spreadsheet. And it's essentially like a vault of all the deals I've done. So I now have one. It's probably more since I've even updated. It was over 150 deals that we've done. And I list the property addresses, like the photos, what the investor made, the return, like the duration, all the little details of the deal. And then I have hyperlinks to like the settlement statement. So they can actually go cross-check and see all these things. Mm-hmm. And again, that my mentor was like, if you can't prove all that and people can't, and you don't make it accessible, then you really don't deserve to be raising money at scale, right? Because that's part of your responsibility to show these people. I mean, not necessarily. There are plenty of people who raise money and they say, hey, go do your own due diligence. But my thought is make it easy for them, right? Put it all in one place because people that just make it easier for them to feel comfortable and say yes. So what I do is I built that out several years ago. Now we're building our own one through the Revive Club to where we'll have our goal is over the next 2 years to do 20 fix and flips as a JV, as a team, as a partnership. And we'll be building out our own little one of those. Like, granted, I'll have 20 more on mine, but they're going to have 20 new ones on theirs. And now they're going to start to build their track record. They're going to have the before and after photos. And to me, it's like, and most importantly, Christine, it's the confidence, right? To say, hey, I saw this deal. I saw the underwriting. I saw it delivered. I saw it sell, and just seeing the whole process. And my hope is that when people get done after 2 years, that I would love to keep doing deals with them, but if maybe they move some of their money and to do their own deals. And I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah. And it's so easy. When I talk to people, when you're talking about the numbers, right? That's where deals are won and lost. And if you like, oh, I'm going to buy it for this and sell it for this, like, okay. But what about your time? What about, what about your holding costs? What about, and people just don't like, no, I looked up when it's fixed up, it's going to be worth this much. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. But what's your actual profit? You have to pay taxes on that money when it's a flip. Do you understand like how all these things are going to come together? And they're not thinking through all of the costs associated with it. Are you forming an LLC or, how are you going to hold this company and what's your legal costs and what's your accountant, what are you paying your accountant? And they're just like, well, I mean, that doesn't matter. That's just a little like, no, you got to factor every single thing in there in order to find out whether or not you really made a profit. And teaching them the numbers is huge. It's huge.
Yes.
People don't have to be able to swing a hammer in order to do a good deal. They have to be able to understand the numbers. How are they working and are they going to be positive at the end of this? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and just to go further on it, them understanding the numbers, and I just set it up on ours. Like you mentioned, it's a big upfront investment to go find all that, to find the teams, to understand the administrative costs, and that's what helps me do it at scale, right? This current one we're raising $1 million, and a lot of those people are 10,000 at a time. Some people do more than 10,
Yeah.
but they don't have to go build out all the infrastructure and pay all that. I'm able to, because the way I structure it, I actually cover that part on my side.
Yeah.
And because I'm doing things at scale, to where it helps those people, to where all those little things you mentioned that they need to consider, at least I can kind of remove some of those obstacles, at least on the first one, right? Or the
Yeah,
first, we'll
exactly.
call it
But
the
they'll
first
see
20.
them on your spreadsheets and stuff. That's what I'm saying. Like they're going to say, it's like, oh, gee, I didn't even think about counting that in my numbers. I
Yeah.
didn't, gee, oh, I didn't realize that had a cost. I didn't realize, you know what I mean? Like they're just not
Mhm.
understanding all the steps. So they'll buy something thinking that it's going to be a good deal, and then when at the end of the day, like, oh, I don't actually think I made any money on that.
Yep.
Yeah, but you would have recognized that if if you would have been able to analyze the numbers properly going into it.
Yep.
So tell us about the workshop you have coming up.
Yes. So this will be our second one. Our first one was back in July here in Houston. And oh man, you could probably still see I'm still lit up from it. I've been like visioning this for years, to have this workshop and be able to help people face to face, and to see it come to life was really cool.
Yeah.
Because finally I was able to like be in the room and like really lean in for 2 days to really help people. And so what we did on our first one is we went through, if so let's think about financial freedom. That is something different for everyone, and we talked about it earlier. What is their number? What does it look like? So for me to start to customize that for everybody, we focused on everyone building out their 10-year vision. So we actually used this really cool AI prompt that helped people kind of ask them questions, to because that's not an easy thing for somebody to answer, like what is my 10-year vision. So again, I had this really cool chat GPT prompt to where it would walk them through it. So that was kind of their homework, to go through it. And then we used the conference to like go deeper, right? Like, let's see what AI told you your 10-year vision is. But now, like, I did hot seats where I brought them up on stage, and everyone was able to watch everyone else so they could learn from each other.
Yeah.
And we went through and we're like, okay, based on the output you got, what really resonates with you? What is really important? And we refined that, right? So we did it over 2 days. And then what we left with was, what are the next things that you need to do over the next 90 days to start to move the needle? Now that we've got this 10-year vision, like, identified and laser focused, what are the things that you do over the next 90 days? So that was the biggest outcome we came out with, is let's nail that in so they're ready to go, right? And then we mixed in a ton of networking and speakers to inspire them, right? Because to think of that 10-year vision, you want to think bigger, right? And you want to be around the right people to make that vision, right? Maybe not necessarily around all the people you work with at your W-2 job who
Right.
have that mindset. Like, get around other entrepreneurs. So that's what we did, and we're going to do a second one here coming up in October, the 23rd through the 25th, right here in Houston. And it'll be, yeah, I'm excited to go. We're going to go through the same exercise, but we're going to have a more of a focus this time on, now, how do you use different financing tools to get there? Whether that's your 401k, whether that's a line of credit on your property, whether that's 0% interest credit cards. There's all these cool strategies other than just cash, right? Or just put your cash in to go make more money. But the focus of the next workshop is going to be, here are some tools you can use to get that 10-year vision.
Cool. Is that just for your investors, or who can come to that?
Yes, it's open to the public. So anyone who comes in, you don't have to be an investor with us to come in there. Yeah, I want to get the right. My only ask is, it's somebody who's like really serious about making a change and wants to take some action toward getting toward their 10-year vision, and wants financial freedom, right? And for the reasons can be all over the board, whether it's you want to have it all to spend it and do vacations on yourself, or you want to provide for your family, or maybe your grandkids, whatever it is. Like, just come in there wanting, you don't have to know all those answers. I'm going to help you work through them, but I just want people who are excited to come in there and start to make a change, and start moving the needle in the right direction.
Yeah, be coachable. That's all we ask. Be
Yes.
coachable. Awesome. So, Casey, what else do you wish I would have asked you? Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you really want to make sure people walk away with, or drive away with, however they're listening?
Yes. I think you hit it so well. Those are typically the ones that I like to share at the end, is like knowing your why, as I mentioned, kind of knowing what, if your why is like, the one I mentioned was being able to choose your family first over work. And I think that resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I love sharing that. And yeah, I would say that is the best way I found is, and just I'll say one last thing on the workshop is I have a lot of calls with different people, or we'll hop on like a 15-minute Zoom call, or I'll do a Zoom, or I'll go present in front of a big audience. But the best way I found to really move the needle was that 2-day workshop, because we were all in the same room and I got to really connect with those people. So I'm just, again, this is a new thing that I finally was able to deliver on in the last, when I say deliver on, I was finally able to schedule it and do the event. And when I did it, and to be able to be in the room and actually help and impact people, that was my favorite thing to do. So if anybody has a takeaway today and want to attend something like that, like I would love to have you guys there and be able to actually be in the same room with you, connect, and help you move the needle.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, there's nothing like that, right? You're away from your regular 9 to 5, right? You're away from your life and you're in a special place where you're just a sponge. You just want to learn and evolve. And those sorts of workshops can just make a huge difference and be very impactful in somebody's life, that in a way that, like you say, no amount of Zoom meetings is going to necessarily be able to give you that same energy feeling, that same mastermind feeling.
Yes. Yeah,
Cool.
and that was my vision for it, and it was cool to talk to people afterward, and for them to feel that and see that. And that's the thing I'll add too is like fortunately I made that decision years ago to be a part of. I wish I would have started it sooner. Honestly, I think I probably started my first mastermind like 6 years ago or so. But when I started doing that, it just opened up, just light bulbs came on. I was so motivated. I was around the right people. And I just wish I would have done it sooner. So it's been really fun to like provide that for some people who maybe this is their first mastermind, the first time they've forced themselves to go get out of their comfort zone and go be a part of something like that.
Well, and that's it. 'Cause you touched on it earlier too. You're not going to have the same kinds of conversations with people that are in your W-2 world. You're not going to have the same kind of conversations with
Mhm.
people who, I mean, you're going to learn things and hear things that you never even imagined. And right, there are going to be ideas and concepts presented to you, and you're going to be like, "Oh my God, that's a thing," you know? I mean, it's just like it's it's a world you may not have even imagined, right?
Yeah. And if you're an entrepreneur at heart and you're like energized and excited now, when you go and surround yourself with those people, it's like 10x. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
exactly, exactly.
Like
So
pouring
Casey,
gasoline on the fire.
yeah, exactly. So now the $1 million question: how can people get in touch with you? How can they sign up for the workshop? What's the best way for them to hear more about you and be more a part of your world?
You bet. So if you guys are interested in one of the events, just go to our website, caseygregersen.com/events. You'll be able to find them all. But then I would just recommend people go there and they can kind of poke around and see some of the other stuff I'm up to. And then I would just say people can reach out, right? I'm really active on social media, from my Instagram to Facebook or LinkedIn, wherever you guys are at. I would love to connect with you, and I encourage you to follow me. I'm really easy to find. It's just at Casey Gregersen. You just got to spell my name right, and I'll be easy to find. But yeah, I would say go out and engage there, guys. And I love, I like, for example, I was up at base camp with my team last week. I didn't tell you this earlier. I should have. I brought 4 or 5 investors. No, it was 5. Sorry, 6 people came up with me, investors or people who are in our Revive club. They came up to Wyoming with me and they got to do a ride along and they got to go see all these properties and see what we're doing. And so I was sharing it with them in real time, but I also was doing a ton of stuff on my Instagram and Facebook and just sharing, like doing a live YouTube or a live Instagram and just showing people like, hey, here's an incredible asset we just walked, this big commercial building in a downtown that's like needs to be revitalized. And I literally just love turning on my phone and interacting with people. So anyway, I would say interact, like reach out, message me. But if you're like, maybe you're the type that you're not ready to lean in right now and you want to get to know me, like go just follow some of my content. And I try to just be my real self all the time. And we can kind of get to know each other without maybe formally doing it. And then when you feel comfortable, which I hope you reach out right away, but if you're not comfortable right away, just follow along for a little bit and then
Yeah.
we'll connect.
Cool. Thank you. And all those contacts, all those links will be in the show notes. So check it out. Connect with Casey. Casey, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate all your hearing your journey and where you are now. It's really exciting.
Thanks, Christine. My pleasure. I'm glad to connect with you and I hope I connect with many more.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you, listeners, for listening. Now, stop right now. write down at least 5 people who you know who would like to have more money. You could probably come up with more like 50 people, but we'll be happy with 5 for now. And for this episode to them, they will thank you and we will thank you. And then go on off and have a fabulous day.